So the next topic that we're going to start today is queues. I know. I know you must be thinking that we're going to start process automation today, but before than that we've got queue. But before than that we've got a topic to cover. That's queues. Okay, what is a queue, guys? What is a queue? Yeah. Okay. And in normal world, like, what is a queue? So waiting area, I should say, right? So there's a counter, there's a desk, and like people are in queue and they are waiting for their query to be attended or for them to be attended. That's exactly what it is. When it comes to business world, give me a second. Yes. So when it comes to the business world, there is also like there are queues over there as well. And let me explain you how like what these queues are and how they are actually used. So let's talk about it. Okay, so you are in a call center. So have you ever called like a call center of Reliance or of Jio, of Airtel or AT&T or whatever it is? Have you ever done that? Okay. So whenever you call them, if there's no one available for the call, then like there's a music that runs and says that your call is valuable for us, even if it is not. Please stay on the line. We'll get you connected with someone. That's exactly what happens. So that means that your information or the information of your call is stored in their CRM, but it is not owned by any of the users or any of the executives who are working over there. It is owned by a queue. Let me explain it to you. So in Salesforce, whenever you create a record, which field's value is always there? So whenever you create a record, that is created by, that automatically gets filled. Last modified by, which automatically gets filled. Owner, which automatically gets filled, right? So can you create a record without the owner field? Yes or no? Yes or no? No, we cannot create a record without the owner field. So first, like let's talk about it. Who is the owner? Like to whom we create an owner of a record? Who should have all the rights of that particular record, right? Who is responsible for that particular record? Let's talk about leads. So in leads, we store the information of potential customers, right? So when we store the information of potential customers, we like create a record of lead. And let's say that from our website, there are leads coming in all day long and no one has attended those leads up till now. Like there are like let's say 10 leads that have come up into our Salesforce database or into our CRM, and no user or no sales executive has have attended those or have contacted those leads. So in that case, the record will still get stored. Yes or no? It will still get stored. So like if you're getting it stored, then who will be the owner of that particular record? Right. People are sleeping. People are not working. Let's say in the night we've got 10 leads. So those 10 leads needs to be stored into our Salesforce database. But who will be the owner of those 10 leads? Sorry? So the manager will always have a task of distributing the leads among the other different sales executives. Yes or no? That don't you think that's a problem? Manager should do his own work instead of distributing the leads. Yes or no? Okay. Let's talk about something else. Whenever there is a workload, there is a lot of workload. In that case, like that needs to be distributed amongst teams. So there are teams that are working and there is a lot of workload. So how can a team work effectively and productively to solve or to work onto these, onto this workload or onto this work, which is a lot? So they can do it with the help of queues. So what happens is, Whenever a record gets entered into the database, a queue becomes an owner of that particular record. The queue becomes the owner of that particular record, and then there are users who are queue members, who can then later get all of these leads, or get the ownership of all of these lead records, and yeah, then they can like make that particular record as they under their, take that particular record under their ownership. So let's talk about it. This guy and this guy, we four are working as a sales executive, right? So like we four are we all four of us are sales executives, and there are leads coming in. There are 100 leads that comes from our website every day. So now we are a team, we need to work on to every lead, right? So how the work can be distributed among all of us? If the leads will be assigned to him only, then in that case there will be a lot of workload for him only. He'll not work, I'll not work. If the leads are assigned to only him, then in that case he'll get a lot of workload and we three will be free. So instead of making the user owner directly, what we do is we take a queue, we make a queue, and we make that queue as an owner of those records. So all the 100 records get inside the queue, and we four, the people who are working on to that on those leads, or the team which is working on those records, become the queue members. So we four become the queue members, and now we on our own choice can select which leads we want to take the ownership of, and then we can change its ownership from that queue to ourselves. This is how the concept of queue works. And you must be thinking that where it is required. Let me tell you, it is required almost everywhere. Whenever there are teams working together in order to resolve something, in order to do something, in order to do a particular work, and there is a lot of workload, in that situation queue is the remedy. How it is the remedy? You cannot create a record in Salesforce without the owner fields value. Yes or no? You cannot do that. So if if you'll be creating a record, and when there will be no user who no definite user who can be the owner of it until unless they take the ownership of it, in that case we'll make the queue as an owner, and the people inside the queue, which we call as queue members, can take the ownership of those records and work on those records. That's what it is. Let me give you another example. We all are into a call center, let's say, right? And a call center, a support center, or whatever you want to call it. There are calls coming in again and again, again and again, again and again. So like it might happen that my call is going on for 15 minutes and his call gets completed into 2 minutes only. So in that case, do you think this guy should wait for another? I mean, if you want to equally distribute the workload, then in that case, this guy will sit idle, right? For 8 to 8. So like let's say every 10 minutes you get one lead. So in that case, if his call is completed in just 2 minutes, then in that case, what will happen? He'll sit idle for 8 minutes. Yes or no? And my call is like went for 15 minutes. If my call went for 15 minutes, there must be other leads that are coming in to me that I cannot attend. So that's a problem, right? So in order to solve the situation, what they do is they create a queue, and all the people who are into working into that support center are the members of that queue. And whenever someone is free, that call gets assigned to the person who got free. So it's not like that you equally distribute the calls or you equally distribute the cases. What you do is you make the team work effectively and productively by sharing the workload amongst them with the help of the concept of queue. Is that clear? And that's how queues in Salesforce also helps us out. Make sense? Okay. Let's go to our Salesforce org and see how it can help us out. May 19 it is, right? So to create a queue, what you're going to do is go to setup and type queues. Then you'll hit new, and in the label you'll write down what? So imagine in our institute, what is happening? There are multiple, what should I say? There are multiple faculties working, right? And there are multiple associate faculties. And what we do is there are multiple students as well, and there are multiple leads as well. Different associate faculty takes the ownership of different students in order to mentor them, in order to guide them what they can do for their life, or what they can do for their career, or what they can do with the work that they've got, or assignment that they've got, or the test that they've given. Make sense? So this thing, like making someone a mentor of a student or of a lead, can be distributed among multiple people, because there are a lot of students and there is a team that is working onto it, because there's a workload. And in order to share that workload, we use the concept of queue. Okay, so you've written the name of the queue. You can set the queue email as well. So like if there is a team that is working, imagine. So like let's say support team that is working, right? So in that case, like support at s2labs.com or support at shreysharma.com. There must be an email like that if there is a particular team. We are not giving the email address of a particular student, but we are giving the email address of a particular group or a particular team. So in that case, it can be support, it can be sales. Like if let's say there are 5 people working into sales, so the queue email would be sales@cyntexa.com, something like that. Make sense? So if you've got like in this case I'll write it down as training at Cyntexa, something like this. Send email to members. That means if whenever an email is sent on this queue or is related to this particular queue, an email should be sent to its members as well. If you'll check it, it will send the email. Otherwise it will not send the email. It's your call, you want to set it or not, or it's your call if you want to set the queue email or not. Your call completely. Now let's talk about supported objects. So queue can become an owner of a record. Yes or no? Yes. So which objects do you allow, or which objects do you allow? For which objects you want to allow the queue to be owner of? That means if you'll add a student in here, then in that case this queue can be the owner of records of student object only, not any other object. If I'll add lead, this queue can be an owner of records of student object as well as lead object, not any other object. That is what it means. Then add queue members. Amit Shah one yesterday, right? Gandhinagar. Amit Shah, and then Shrey Sharma. We have made both of them as a queue member, and you can create as many people as queue members with the help of public group, roles and subordinates and whatnot. And then hit save. So now it's a queue created, right? We'll go to a particular student. Like let's say this Raja Ram, and we'll change the owner. We'll make the queue as the owner. Now who is the owner of this record? The queue, right? You must be thinking that we have created a queue. When the records get created, it should automatically get assigned to that particular queue. Why do we have to do it manually? Why are we assigning a particular record to a queue manually? So listen to this. We do not know how to do that right now, because we do not know how to do process automation. It's automation. Whenever a lead is coming in, you assign or you make the queue as the owner. That's automation, right? Like the general tendency is whenever someone registers a a record, the one who is creating that record becomes the owner of that record. Normally this is what happens. But if you want to change this functionality through automation, like whenever anyone registers a record, the queue should become the owner. So in that case, you'll have to do process automation. And once you'll do the process automation, I mean, it will the queue will automatically become the owner of that particular record that we're going to learn in the next chapter. We're going to do that in the next chapter. But is this clear? Okay. Now, if I'll go to the student, I'll see a new list view created automatically. Student and lead mentorship queue. So whenever you create a queue, a new list view automatically gets created in which the records which are there in that particular queue are there. Now, if I want to take the ownership of this particular record, I'll just hit change owner and I'll select it myself and I'll submit. So this is how you take the ownership of the record which are there in the queue. Let's say there are 10 records in the queue. Grass, Cinderella, Iron Man, Sinbad, Angela, Ragaram, Anthony. What's the difference between a regular user and a queue? Good question. This is what your question is, right?
We can assign all the records to a user and take it from
Got it. So in that case, I mean, the other users will not be able to know that there are some records that they need to work on until unless that particular user is not assigning those records to them. And currently we are the system administrators, so we can assign any of the record to any other user. But a normal user cannot actually do that. Make sense? And one more thing, you can create a demo user as well, a dummy user or something like that. But in that case, there will be a user license that costs. Okay, so I'll change the owner. I'll make the queue as the owner. Please shut that. We can do that. I've got a habit of working into Classic actually. In Classic, it was not possible. So. These are all the records. So like, let's say if I want to take this student as well as this student, so I'll take only these two students and not the queue, what people, Shrey Sharma. I'll take the ownership of these records. And similarly, Amit Shah logged in from his org is a queue member. He will be able to see all of these records as well. And he also can take the ownership of the records which he wants to. Make sense? So this is how it works. And for lead records as well, let's change the owner for this Bertha box here. Where is the owner? Queues. Student lead mentorship queue, change owner. Done. So you can make this student and lead mentorship queue an owner for a lead record as well. Let's try with faculties. Will it work? Why? Exactly. We haven't added it into the supported objects. So see, there is no queue option coming up in there. Make sense? Everyone? Okay.
So anyone can take the ownership irrespective of the permission they have.
Let's talk about it. That's the next thing that I want to discuss right now. Okay. It depends on the OWD. So there are four types of OWD. Three types of, what do you know? Public read write, public read only, and private. And there is one more. Public read write transfer, which is only applied to certain standard objects. Right? So if the OWD is public read write transfer, then in that case, listen to this very carefully. If the OWD is public read write transfer, then in that case, anyone can take the ownership of the records, anyone can see the records, anyone can do anything what they want, no matter whether they are a queue member or not. So if you are a queue member and he's not a queue member, and in that case, you can also take the ownership of that record and he can also take the ownership of that record. If and only if it is a public read write transfer. Make sense? Okay, let's talk about something else. Public read write and public read only. So these are the two permissions which work together. So if the OWD is public read write or public read only, in both of these cases, the same thing applies. If the OWD is public read write or public read only, then in that case, any user in our org can see the records which are there in the queue. Which records? The records which are in the queue. But only the queue members can take the ownership of these records. If the OWD is public read write or public read only, then in that case, any user can see the records which are there inside the queue, but only the queue members will be able to take the ownership of the records. Now let's talk about the third one, private. So if the OWD is private, then in that case, only the queue members can see and take ownership of the records which are there in the queue. I'll make you write it down just to first understand it well. Okay. Let's talk about public read write transfer. Write down what I say. Everyone can see the records in queue. Everyone can see the records in queue and take the ownership of them. And take the ownership of them. Make sense? Okay, so for public read write transfer, it's everyone. Everyone can do anything that they want. Let's talk about public read write or public read only. Everyone can see, but only queue members can take the ownership. Everyone can see, or write down, everyone can view the records in the queue, but only the queue members can take the ownership of the records in the queue. But only the queue members can take the ownership of the records in the queue. Make sense? Now the third one, private. Write it down like this. Only the queue members can view and take ownership. Only the queue members can view and take ownership of the records in the queue. Clear? Okay. Any further questions, Divisha? Clear? Okay. Yeah, I mean, write down a note. Write down a note. Irrespective of what the OWD is, irrespective of the of what the OWD is, the user the user the user needs to have the user needs to have edit permission. The user needs to have edit permission on object level security. The user needs to have the edit permission on object level or just cut down security on object level in order to take the ownership of the records. Done? Irrespective of the OWD, and even if you're a queue member and you haven't got the edit permission on that particular object, you cannot take the ownership. And the answer to your question is, if you haven't got the edit permission, can you be the owner of that and stuff like that? How do you think that you'll take the ownership without, if you do not have the edit permission? Because the owner is a field, and when we change its value, we are actually editing the record. Someone who haven't got the edit permission on the object level, then he or she will not be able to change the value of the owner field. So irrespective of being a queue member or irrespective of being irrespective of the OWD, the user always needs to have edit permission on the object level. Is it clear to everyone? Can you please explain it to me? No or yes? It's not clear. I know. So the thing is, irrespective of what the OWD is, whether it is public read write transfer, public read write read only private, or whether the user is a queue member or not, he or she needs to have edit permission on the object level. If they haven't got the edit permission on the object level, they'll not be able to change the ownership of a particular record. And accepting a record from a queue is nothing but changing the owner. That's how it works. So I hope it makes sense. All of you. Perfect. Why there is a need to share the workload. To share the workload. If you, how you're going to store the record without the owner field's value? To whom you're going to make the owner? So like, let's say, let's create Bindu, the owner of every record. Then why the other people will even bother to work on to Bindu's record? How will it? This is how you, so if it will affect your security, then why to make the OWD as public read write transfer? Make it public read only, make it private. If it is that important to you, but if it is not, then make it public read write transfer. It's your call. Make sense? No. Any other question, anyone? No? Okay. Yeah, so there's one note again that I mean, no, you do not have to write it down, just listen to it. What was it? Yeah. You cannot delete a queue unless there is a single record in that particular queue. You first need to reassign all of those records to some other user or to some another queue, and then only after that you can delete a queue. So that basically means if this is a queue and you want to delete this queue and there are some records in this queue, if you delete this queue, what will happen to the records in this queue? The owner field will be blank? No, it can never ever be blank. So in that case, you have to reassign these records to some other queue or to some other user, and then only you can delete this particular queue. Is that clear? You can never ever delete a user. Salesforce never allows you to delete a user. Make sense? Everyone? Okay. And with that, I think we're done with queues. This is all what queues are about. And yeah, accepting. And in classic, you'll get something else as well. You'll get an accept button. If I'll go to students, go. This. I want to accept these records. 50 and 54. Let's see who's the new owner of all these records. 50 and 54, right? Sahil Sharma. Sahil Sharma. And let's see the feeds. No, not in the feeds, but yeah, last modified 8:03 a.m. today. Or here, 8:03 a.m. today. That's how it works. Can you repeat about the delete the delete topic? Okay, the queue deletion. So if there is a queue and there are 5 records in that particular queue, and if you're trying to delete this particular queue, you cannot delete it unless there is a single record in this particular queue, or if this queue owns even a single record. So in this case, you have to reassign these 5 records to some other queue, and yeah, I mean to some other queue or to some other user, and then only you'll be able to delete this particular queue. I hope that makes sense. Got it. Perfect. Yes, that's what it is about your what queues.